Yeah, when you throw the population of India and China into the mix, the numbers are really exponential.
And what are the current treatments right now for colorectal cancer, and who has them?
Okay,
what's out there in the market right now?
Present standard of care is Avastin from Genentech, but it only works when you add 5-FU and leucovorin to it. That's the standard of care. Our trial, our phase 2 trial, actually takes that regimen and just adds ardavinat to it. And for example, we've shown that we can shrink tumors. 43% of the people had 30% or more tumor shrinkage. The rest of the people had stable disease where the tumor doesn't progress, which is phenomenal. Beyond that, we had no serious adverse side effects when we added ardavinat to it, way below what would be expected for that type of patient who's got colorectal cancer.
What is a typical life with which it takes for a drug to make it from, concept, we're thinking about this drug, to getting into trials, to ultimately getting to the end market? It's a long period of time, correct?
So it can take about 10 years, easy 10 years.
Do you know how long Avastin, as an example, took before it ultimately got to the market?
Took about 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now we're going through with Genentech different ways to implement and use Avastin. I know there was a study recently where they didn't get the result that they wanted. But your story is much more complex in the sense that it's a delivery system that you're perfecting. So it may have ramifications well beyond what you're doing.
For sure.
And as I understand it, you have 10 patents, or is it?
There are 5 issued patents in the area of oncology.
Right.
But the 3 key people, David Anatol, our chief scientist, and Ellie Zomer, our VP of manufacturing, between them have 68 patents, over 100 years of experience in carbohydrate chemistry, 400 publications, and about 20 books. So they're in this area because, as David said, there aren't a lot of people. We have a big part of the core competency. And we had to write the book because people just didn't understand carbohydrates in the field of drug design.
Well, that's a good point. We're going to take a quick break and go to our finest known facts and be back to talk about the book in a few minutes.
Great.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking to Dr. Zucconi and Dr. Platt about new innovation approach to treating cancers. Before we went to the break, Jeff, you mentioned this amazing book that was published by the American Chemical Society, on the principles of this carbohydrate delivery system. I guess the first question I'd really like to know with regards to this is, how was it received? Have you had any dissident response to this theory? Are you bucking the wave, or are the waters parting for you?
Actually, the world ignored it. It seems that nobody cares, simply because scientists, carbohydrate is considered a neglected science for many years. The revolution about protein development and knowledge, followed by the nucleic acid gene therapy, carbohydrate chemistry called the neglected science.
Right.
And not many people specialize in this type of organic. It's an organic chemistry, very complex, need a lot of many years of understanding and dedication to the field.
Are there any other public companies that are focused on carbohydrates, or are you guys kind of it?
Yes, there are 2 main companies that I know. One is Neos Pharmaceutical, and the other one is Momenta.
Okay.
Have they had similar success with trials?
No.
Okay. Glad we cleared that up.
Momenta is generic. They're trying to do generic heparin, and we are the only one who doing full therapy and a claim for superiority as a new drug entity.
Right. And it seems to me that if you're successful and you get an FDA approval, that you'll be a magnet for others to come in with carbohydrates.
That's our hope, because it's almost, there's no competition. Sometimes there's no one to talk to.
Right. That makes it hard. You know, competition sometimes is a good thing. But, you know, before during the break, we were talking about specialty
Yes.
pro pharma. Let's talk a little about that and labeling and maybe some of the other drugs that you're doing. And you even are doing something in South America.
The specialty, the FDA, most people don't know, have multiple ways of approving a drug. And there are certain sections in the code that you have to understand. And one of our core competencies, David and Ellie Zomer, our VP of Manufacturing, are really masters at understanding the FDA process. So you can go for an approval as what's called an excipient, where you just add it to another drug that's already approved. In our case, ours actually is a drug, so they didn't call it just an excipient. In a letter they sent back to us, they called it a functional novel excipient. So that really means they're not quite sure what to call it, but they know it works. So we can get an approval to add this to chemotherapy that's already approved very quickly, right? Again, because of the safety. We've shown that we not only have no safety issues ourselves, but we reduce the safety or the toxicity of the chemotherapy. So we can get an approval very on fast track as an excipient where we're adding it to something else, right? But it actually has a function itself. In addition, we have a lot of things we're doing outside the U.S. and in South America. We mentioned before that there are a lot of people who get colorectal cancer at a young age. So we're talking to different countries on how to start selling and marketing the drug when we get FDA approval. Some countries you can actually sell and market it before you get FDA approval, right, according to what the regulations are of the country. And we're working with a number of partners there. We're working in the Middle East, we're working in Asia, working pretty much all over the world on a regional basis to get approval to sell and market this. Now, David's kind of modest, but there are only a handful of carbohydrate chemists, so we do need help because we have so many projects to work on. You don't just go down the corner and find a carbohydrate chemist standing around. If you did find them, you'd probably be talking about food, okay? Because that's where the main part of the American Chemical Society carbohydrate group focuses on, food and food additives. In our case, David and Anatole designed a whole new drug, totally different carbohydrate, that's used for fibrosis. We're working with Dr. Scott Friedman, head of the American Liver Disease Society at Mount Sinai in New York. And we have shown in animal trials, so far that's all we've done, that not only can we stop fibrosis, but we can actually reverse it. Okay? So this kind of mechanism where the carbohydrate goes to the receptor on the disease in the fibrosis, it shuts it down and it gives the liver a chance to heal itself. So we've reversed liver fibrosis to where it's almost gone. Now this means a lot for people because if you ask me about the size of the...
You only have one liver too.
Right.
It's a godsend. There's a large demand for that.
Huge, and there is no treatment presently.
Yeah, we're planning to go to clinical trial, to apply for clinical trial this year. You asked about colorectal cancer, 300,000 people. Yeah. There are 170 million people in China with hepatitis C, which leads to fibrosis.
Wow.
It's worse there because of the hepatitis C, but then you find some countries in Northern Europe where they have a lot of fibrosis because of alcoholism. What we're finding here in this country, which is amazing, is we're getting a lot of young people with fibrosis because of obesity. So there's a segment of the population, now the fibrosis is the same, but the cause is different. And we're the only thing so far that's ever been shown, according to Dr. Friedman, that can not only stop it, but reverse it.